1, 2, 3.
Hi, Sacred Family. We're Tiana.
What's your name?
Oh,
Oh, we can't hear you like that. This is Carissa. I'm Pat.
And I'm Jeff.
And we want to welcome you to this week's gathering.
Yes, one of our favorite things about Sacred is the worship.
The games and the markers and the drawing and the
And the
Lego
people.
And the people.
So we're glad you're here to experience it with us today. Say bye.
Bye, 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 bye.
Sorrows, there is an ocean deeper than fear. The tide is rising, rising. There is a current stirring deep inside. It's flowing from the heart of God, the heaven, crashing over us. The tide is rising, rising, bursting, bursting up from the ground. We feel it now, bursting, bursting up from the ground. We feel it now. We come alive in the river. 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 There is a river where goodness flows. There is a fountain that drowns sorrows. There is an ocean deeper than fear. The tide is rising, rising. There is a current stirring deep inside, from the heart of God, oh, crashing over us. Rising, rising, bursting, bursting up from the ground. We feel it now, bursting, bursting up from the ground. We feel it Set all these captives free, including me. Spring up a well, spring up a well, spring up a well in me. Nothing can stop this joy. I'm dancing in the streets. Spring up a well, spring up a well, spring up a well in me. Nothing can stop this joy, stop this joy. We're dancing in the streets. Spring up a well, spring up a well, spring up a well in me. 'Cause we come alive in your river. I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together. Desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen it all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. 'Cause you're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. Turn graves into gardens.
I'll never forget, it was his turn to talk. He said,
COVID crisis is friend to us.
there are 0 scenarios in my mind where COVID has or can be a friend to Project Rescue. I was preparing to take a team of about 20 people overseas. I remember before my flight was set to leave, I received a phone call. I just want to tell you, don't get on that plane. A week or 2 later, the headlines just started rolling in.
We're also seeing U.S. case numbers of COVID-19.
Emergency over coronavirus.
That was really when COVID got really real. A flurry of just phone calls and emails, people saying, you know, I've lost my job, I'm on furlough. We just saw a precipitous decline of financial support for Project Rescue. My biggest fear was not being able to provide for those that we're committed. We've committed our lives to providing for them. What if we don't have an answer for this? What do we do? We never got to the place where we actually had to make the budget cuts. And it was because of what happened just a few weeks after that. Beth Grant, she came into the office and she had just a really powerful word.
God was reminding me, Beth, in all your life, I never called you to the priority of staying safe. Stay ready.
Hello, Pastor Rajneesh. How are
Thank
you
you
doing?
so much, Brother Jonathan. We are doing great.
He said, right now, in this moment, he said, this is the single greatest ministry opportunity I've seen in my entire life.
COVID crisis is friend to us because the red light districts are closed down. They asking me, sir, can you help us out? We don't want to sell ourselves. And here I see as an opportunity to rescue them and change their life and destiny forever.
And we were all in agreement in that moment. The word that Beth gave us just a few weeks prior, stay ready. And Beth looked at me and said, this is it. This is that moment.
When God opens a door and an opportunity to help minister to prostituted women and children, we're going to seize the moment.
So we reached out to our core supporters. You know, we shared the need. We shared all about the women and children, their openness to joining the Project Rescue program. And we called the campaign Forever Free.
And I thank God for partners. And they're saying, this is a God moment. We will not miss this moment. We will stand with you.
The first check we received from one church was $300,000. And then after that, just church after church, person after person, the stories that started rolling in. And it was just an avalanche of an outpouring of support, an outpouring of people saying, we're in. And before we knew it, there were hundreds and now thousands are being impacted by Forever Free. The first thing we did is we sent off a significant investment specifically for feeding programs. And the goal of that was, hey, while we're figuring out what the long-term strategy is here, we need to meet the short-term need. So the food rations led to the biggest single investment in our history into vocational training, creating businesses, microloans, connecting women with a new agriculture project where we're basically creating a significant Project Rescue operation where women and children that have been rescued can find a way to work and then also create sustainability for them so that they never have to go back to a life of slavery. It was a young girl that was trafficked and she found herself in the Forever Free program. Her traffickers tried to lure her back. We'll pay you 10 times whatever they're paying you here. And she looked at the young men and said, I've found my place. I've found my God. I will never go back. It's testimonies like that that make everything worth it. And it's not specific to just Southern Asia. Eastern Europe, Western Europe, mafias, they were literally allowing us to come into their clubs to give medical care to some of the women that they had been trafficking. And today, that's where we're at. We are scaling up the biggest vocational initiative in Project Rescue's history with the goal that hundreds, if not thousands of women will come to find their purpose and will come to find dignity
And they also will learn what it means to be ready, to become voices, to become hands and feet, to be used of God in the middle of a storm. And I have to say, I don't feel like we're finished with the command, stay ready.
This past summer, Ben and I were at a very tiny, small wedding. And I was sitting across from one of the leaders in our church tradition, one of my mentors and pastors, Dr. Sam Huddleston. And he was telling me that he had been in a discussion with folks from Project Rescue, and they had been sharing what God was doing. And that the red light districts were being shut down, but they needed to buy some property. They needed to get these women into programs because it was just an unprecedented, supernatural God opportunity. And he told me, he said, it was crazy because all of a sudden, out of his mouth, he said that he was going to raise $50,000 for them. And afterwards, he was like, why did I say that? That kind of thing. And he said, but you know what? God is so good. He's like, I started sharing the need and instantly money started coming again. And it happened so fast. At this point, I only have $3,000 left to raise. And we sat there across the table and I told him, I said, well, then you're done. And he looked at me, I said, you're done. I'll send you the $3,000. Sacred will cover the last $3,000 that you're trying to raise right now. And then followed up and was able to send that check. And I just want to thank you for partnering with Project Rescue, but more importantly, partnering with what God is doing around the world. It's because of your generosity and your stewardship that we are able to meet those needs in the moment like that. In 2020, it was financially a tough year for so many people, but it's amazing that we were able to meet all of our commitments. A lot of churches, their giving directly reflects what the people are experiencing in their lives. If people are losing jobs, if people are moving, that kind of thing, it reflects in the finances of a church. And did Sacred take a bit of a hit? Yeah, we did. But it wasn't near what it could have been because so many people stepped up in those moments. And you know what? We had said that we were going to pay all of our bills on time. We were going to meet all of our missions commitments, and we were going to step up our giving into local needs in our community and area. And guess what? Over 20% of our total giving income in 2020 went to missions. That's a bigger percentage than I've seen in so many years. And that is just such a beautiful picture of how God leads our hearts into giving. Today, I want to challenge you to step that up in 2021. I love that song, Graves into Gardens. I feel like it is the theme song for 2021 in so many ways. And just seeing how God is using unprecedented times to do unprecedented things. And that's not just in our lives and in Sacred, but around the world. We support missions in two different ways. The first way is through our one-time gifts, our project giving. Things like sitting from a leader who is working with Project Rescue and they say we need 50,000, we need 3,000 more. And in that moment, I know as pastor at Sacred what I'm able to commit, and I'm able to, although in that moment it was a bit of in faith, say $3,000, yes, I'll send you a check. We'll get that covered. So that project giving is very important to be able to meet those needs that come up in the moment. The second is through our ongoing monthly support when we have missions partners, usually families, individuals that serve in other countries or in particular parts of our country, like our Chi Alpha missionaries on a secular college campus like at Stanford, and partners like that who they have monthly expenses, reoccurring expenses every single month like you and I do. So we pledge support on a monthly basis. So many missionaries right now are losing monthly support, and we have not had to cut anything from our budget in the last year. I'm so happy to say that, but I would really love for us to be able to step up in some ways in 2021 and meet some needs. So here's what I'm going to ask of you. If you currently have a monthly missions pledge, remember this is above your normal tithe, then I want you to pray about upping that. And if you have never given to missions on that regular monthly basis, because that's how we're able to commit to those missions and those global partners, then I'm going to just challenge you today to step up and do that. I want you to go to givethroughsacred.church, or you can go to our Church Center app, and I want you to go to the giving module, put in an amount that in faith you are going to be challenged by above your tithe, and say, we are going to give this on a monthly basis to Sacred. And I don't want you to just give today. I want you to use the drop-down bar where it says one-time gift. I want you to change that to a reoccurring gift. That allows us to plan ahead. Right? You like to know what's coming in each month in your budget. It's the same with Sacred and our church budgeting process. When I have conversations with missions partners around the world, I want to know that we can say yes and we can meet that commitment. So if you could change your occasional giving to a reoccurring gift, here is what we're going to be able to do. We're going to be able to step up in big ways. We're going to know how we can continue to support our missions partners. We're going to know when we're able to support new missionaries that God has called to the field. We're also going to know when we can just jump in on projects. When there is a need in that moment, as a church family, we'll be able to say, yes, we'll send that check. We are going to go ahead and meet that need. For everybody who does a reoccurring gift, I actually have a gift for you. We have gifts from Project Rescue, from the women in that program, handmade items. And so I want to send you a gift. So we can go in on the back end of the system. And if you set up a reoccurring gift, or you already have yours set up, then pretty soon you're going to be receiving that. So please hear from God today on that amount. Step up to the challenge in that, in faith. And you know what, while you're at it, if you don't have your tithe set up as a reoccurring gift, that would be great too. It's a great way to do it. We have one more missions update before we get into our new series this morning. So disclaimer, this is from one of our missions partners that works in trafficking. January is actually our National Anti-Trafficking Month. So that's why we're bringing these missions updates in January. And so this is Joy, our friend from Europe, and she's actually from the Bay Area. She used to be part of our church family years ago, so some of you know her personally. We don't share her full name online because of the work that she does, but also just a disclaimer, if you have young kids in the room, you might want to go back to mute because of just the simple vocabulary needs there. So check this out.
Hi Sacred, this is Joy, your missionary to France, wanting to send my heartfelt hello to you and also to give you a little update of what's been going on. This year has been a very weird season for anti-trafficking outreach work in France, but I am so excited to tell you that there are several women who've actually exited their situation. They've left prostitution because of COVID-19, because of this weird year. It has given them the push that they need to get out of their situation. We have one woman who's housed in a secure location. She has just had a little baby, and so I would just ask your prayers for her as she's starting a new life, giving this little family an opportunity to see a different future. And so we're just so grateful for what God is doing in the different cities with our outreaches and the local teams and what God is doing. It's just so exciting. But we've seen another woman who's been wanting to leave. She got a job in 2020. Imagine that. And there are some others who have received their legal papers to be in the country so that they can get out of their situation as well. So God is just doing some really great things. But I will say it's been a weird year because I was supposed to move. I was supposed to plant another anti-trafficking outreach, and all of that's on hold. So I would so appreciate your prayers. There's been a second shelter in place. There's curfews at different points throughout the year, and that will continue into next year. So it's making it difficult to do the type of outreach work that I do. And so we so appreciate your prayers for God's wisdom, his protection, and as well that more women would desire to exit prostitution and be able to have the courage and all the support they need to get out of prostitution. So God bless you. I'm praying for you. May you just be healthy and strong in this season. And I'm praying that I will see you all very, very soon. Take care.
we are jumping into a new series talking about the call of God and how God reveals himself to us and just draws us to him. And we're doing that with this Epiphany Sunday. Now, some of you may have heard that phrase before. Maybe you had La Rosca this past week on, Thursday? On the 6th. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And I'm going to explain what that is. But I want to take you through kind of 4 points in time. Okay, so these are historical points in time. I'm not like talking about some fairy tale. We're talking about things that have actually happened in the history of this world. So generations and generations and generations ago, early in the New Testament stories, you may have read the book of Daniel or heard the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Or maybe you've heard the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Fantabulous names right there. If you grew up like I did with VeggieTales, it's Rack, Shack, and Benny. Right? And so they were the 3 Hebrew boys that were thrown into the fiery furnace. Now, just to set us up, here's the first point in time, their day. Okay? So this is earlier in the Old Testament. And what has happened is these are obviously really smart young men, and their leadership quality, they're highly intelligent. And what has happened, the reason that they are going through that type of persecution is they have been carried away from the homeland of God's people. And they have actually been captured, enslaved in all of these different ways. In fact, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that is not their Hebrew name, that is their slave name that they're recorded by. And they have been taken captive further east into Babylon, which is Persia, okay, and that modern day area. Because you got to remember this, again, not fairy tales, historical things that happened. And so these are geographical places that you can find on a map today. So they were carried away to the east. And for generations, they were the best and brightest of God's people that were put to work in other places. So years later, there is a prophet that God raises up. And remember that prophets are men and women of God who are called to speak what God is saying to the people. And people always like to think of prophecy in terms of foretelling, or like what's going on, or foretelling what's going to happen in the future, predicting the future. But often it was a reminder of what God had already said to them, the agreements that had already come in their covenant relationship with God and the people, and reminders to return to that covenant relationship. Well, we get to this place in the book of Isaiah. And Isaiah is one of the major prophets in the Bible. And if you're looking in your paper Bible, that's how far I am through the Bible to get to the book of Isaiah. And it's one of the major prophets just because it's longer. Historically and academically, it's like split up sometimes into 3 different sections, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Isaiah. Within the text, you've got long, long poems and songs that God's message was put into, so that it wasn't just a one-time message to the people, but they clearly wanted it to be remembered. And you're talking about oral history, you're talking about things that would have been taught and passed on through oral learning. So they would put it into song or put it into poetry so that they could teach it and memorize it by rote. Okay, so you get to this section, Isaiah chapter 60. And this week, with all of the craziness and the absolute assault on our capital and everything that happened just horrifically, there's been a lot of horrific things, in the past calendar year and then the start of this year. And my favorite thing was, could we just call this a leap year and go to 2022? Can we? The other was that I saw was after 7 days of 2021, it's like, the 7-day free trial of 2021 is over. Can I still return it? I don't like what's going on so far. But no joke aside, it was bad, right? And people storming the Capitol and threatening people's lives, and not just property, but our system of governance, and trying to stop that. There's all kinds of things that could be said about that. None of it was okay. None of it was okay. And so as I was studying for our new series and studying for our message, man, this passage just came alive in my heart thanks to the Holy Spirit this week. So we get to this passage in Isaiah, and Isaiah says, "Arise, Jerusalem. Let your light shine for all to see. For the glory of the Lord rises to shine on you. Darkness as black as night covers all the nations of the earth. But the glory of the Lord rises and appears over you. All nations will come to your light. Mighty kings will come to see your radiance. Look and see, for everyone is coming home. Your sons are coming from distant lands, and your daughters will be carried home. Your eyes will shine, and your heart will thrill with joy. For merchants from around the world will come to you. They will bring you the wealth of many lands. Vast caravans of camels will converge on you, the camels of Midian and Ephah. The people of Sheba will bring gold and frankincense and will come worshiping the Lord. There's this idea that the darkness is not permanent. There's this idea that the banishment of being carried away and not being in that sense of home is not permanent. And there's also this hope that communities of the people of God are just going to bring such a light to the world, are going to be communities of people that don't push others away, that don't reflect an earthly kingdom, but reflect the light of the true King of Kings, the real Lord of Lords. This morning, I opened up my Bible app and went to our devotions from our Bible reading plan from this last week on prayer. And the first line of our Devo this morning said, "We can't be pessimists and prayerful children of the Most High at the same time. The moment our lives truly change because of what happened on the cross, we become, get this, light bearers. And when we move, we bring the light into all areas of our communities and our cultures." In this passage in Christian tradition is linked with Epiphany that I mentioned. The word is from a Greek word that literally means shining forth. And the traditional definition is talking about God's glory in human form at the birth of Christ. And you always see it connected in Christian tradition with the verse in John 1, that the light shines in the darkness and the darkness cannot overcome it. And that idea that we need to be optimistic people of prayer. I've always called myself a realist and instead of a pessimist or optimist. And man, I was convicted by that devotional this morning that it's like, Kathy, you don't need to be a realist. You need to be an optimist as a person of powerful prayer and say, yes, darkness may seem like it covers so much of the earth, but look up. Look up. And it's so important that we see that. In verse 4, look and see. Look and see. That idea we've talked about in teaching before, that the kingdom of God is part already and part not yet, right? We know that one day on the other side of eternity, we're going to have the new heavens and the new earth, and it's going to be amazing and perfect, and there will be no more sorrow, no more tears, no more sickness, no more pain for those who believe in Jesus Christ on this side of eternity. But already today, we can pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's not just this future thinking we can have about the light of Jesus Christ. It's already with us as well. But sometimes we don't look up. Sometimes the darkness and the cloud around us means we just see dimly, that we get lost in that. But when we remember, arise, let your light shine for all the world to see. Like this passage in Isaiah, then we remember that God has promised these amazing moments of the breakthrough of the light shining through the darkness. And historically it happened, but man, yes. Did God bring the people back to Jerusalem? Did God begin to restore their cities at some point? Remember, Nehemiah began to rebuild those walls, but guess what? Isaiah was also talking about the future here. See, this revelation, this idea that he was talking about was really reminding them who they truly are. You are a reflection of the light of God. And what a reminder to us that when we stand among all the darkness, around all the wrong that is going on, we do not need to be overcome by that, because it's not light that we have to produce. No, we just have to look up, see the light breaking through, and reflect that to those around us. And what happens is that all the people around us, locally and globally, who don't know the truth, the light of Jesus Christ, will come to that saving knowledge. Just like we've talked about with our missions partnerships around the globe. The fact that we can say, you know what? We know what God is doing. We can look up, we can see these opportunities, we can see these partnerships, the way that we can covenant with them for what God is doing around the globe, and we can, in faith, reflect what he's doing, how he's providing not just to us, but through us. We can give, and we can do this. When we recognize, the light that God has placed on me, the grace that God has placed on my life, when I see that it's nothing that I've done for myself, but how that light has broken through in my darkness, then how do I respond? Right? A great question in my study time this week said, how do I respond to God's initiative of grace? Now listen to this. What gift do I bring to the Christ and to this church family gathered in his name? One of the things that we're focusing on in 2021 this year is our reading and prayer time as a church family. And I have also decided that we're not just going to be reading scripture together as a local church family, but with the global church family. There is a tradition that thousands and hundreds of thousands of churches around the globe use, which is the liturgical calendar, right? We've talked a little bit about this with the seasons of Advent and Lent and Easter and Pentecost and those types of things. But we're actually going to be following the scriptures that each week the historical church has placed within those different Sundays. So around the globe, there's a short list of passages that are being read in churches around the world. It's as if when you join in this, one of my friends this week said it was kind of like the most historical flash mob there's ever been, because the global church reads these passages and it's like everybody knows the choreography. Around the world, churches are celebrating Epiphany Sunday this week and talking about the light of Christ, the revelation of who he is. And they're talking about, in a way, what we bring to that and how God calls us into that light. And that gift word, if you have any sort of connection in your history with Epiphany or okay, I'm going to probably butcher the Spanish, and I apologize to all of our Spanish speakers. Dia de los Tres Reyes, right? The Day of Three Kings, with La Rosca and those different traditions, the Epiphany. Then there is a passage that you in your brain probably have connected with Epiphany. And so when we read this passage, let me go again to the end of the Isaiah past. Vast caravans of camels will converge on you. The camels of Midian and Ephah, the people of Sheba, will bring gold and frankincense and will come worshiping the Lord. So what does that sound like? Okay, if you've got some Bible knowledge for yourself, right? That sounds like a passage that many of you may be familiar with in Matthew, the first book of the New Testament. And it's Matthew chapter 2, okay, verses 1 through 12. Wait, I just turned to Malachi. That's not Matthew. There we go. Couple of wrong pages. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where's the newborn king of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we've come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law and asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" "In Bethlehem, in Judea," they said, "for this is what the prophet wrote. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah, for a ruler will come from you who will be the shepherd for my people Israel." Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, come back and tell me so I can go and worship him too." Just disclaimer here, he had no intention to do that, okay, because Herod's gonna Herod, okay, and he was not a good guy, and he was totally intimidated, as I'll get out by this. After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east, where were they from? Eastern areas, okay, guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house, not the manger. We all know they weren't at the manger scene, right? Okay, so you can move the wise men away from the nativity. This could have been, we know it was at least probably like 40 days later because of cleansing laws and that kind of stuff. It could have been up to 2 years later. When they finally got to baby Jesus, so it could have been toddler Jesus, right? They entered the house and saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasure chest and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. But let me just say, this is another whole sermon, but a great preaching point. When you encounter Jesus, you don't go back the way you came. Okay? I just couldn't leave that out. It was too good. But what did they bring? Their treasure chest, and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They were from other countries. This is that third place and time that I was talking about in the beginning, and how generations and generations before, the greatest and the best from the people of God had been pulled away into Persia and eastern cities like Babylon. And then the prophet was saying, one day other nations are actually going to come back because of the light that is shining forth from God, and they're actually going to bring gifts on camels like gold and frankincense. And then guess what? At this third place in time, the prophecy was completely fulfilled, because from the east, the wisest, the Magi, some of the best and brightest, came, and they brought gifts, and they worshiped, and they bowed down, and they brought gold and frankincense and myrrh, and all kinds of meaning has been given to those gifts, but the simple fulfillment of prophecy is meaning enough for me. And if you want to add some meaning to the myrrh, it was used in burial. So you have this happening. And all of this shows us to this fourth place reality of our lives today. When we can be in a political climate that feels like we're being carried off, a cultural climate like Daniel was speaking into, where it felt like just darkness all around and that people weren't living for truth. Or it could be a climate like Herod and the scribes who knew scripture but were more interested in being attached to Herod as a center of power than what God was doing out on the fringes of the cities in a manger and a house where the wise men from afar came to worship the real king. where they came bearing gifts that fulfilled prophecy, because the light was shining. And today, when the light shines in our darkness, we have to remember to step up and reflect it around us. We're invited to cross that threshold of joy so that people from all nations who don't know God end up worshiping Jesus. What joy do I bring to that moment? What powerful prayer that is optimistic am I bringing into the moment right now? What gifts and treasures am I bringing into the moment in 2021? In the midst of all of this, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen on you. From the exile days to the Isaiah and the prophet days to the darkness of what Jesus was born into, to today, and confusion and wondering and the pandemic and the isolation at times and all of those things, we get to remember these promises. And so many times I think we get that wrong because we think, oh, we'll get the promises of God, and we think of those as an end point, like a destination, when really they are the start of something. The promises of God are not our goal. They are our starting point, where we step out in faith, where we do more, where we reflect him more boldly, where we pray more boldly, where we dig into his word more boldly, where we give more boldly this year. The glory of the Lord will shine on you. The Lord will arise upon you. And as we come to Jesus, maybe we're like the wise men who didn't completely understand what they were doing. They just knew that wisdom led them there, that they knew that they were coming to meet a king, and they worshiped him. And we gather with believers around the globe who are reading these passages today, who are remembering that in all of this there is Jesus. That God is at work not just in the centers of power, but out in the margins. And we get to partner with that. We don't have to be paralyzed by fear. We don't have to be paralyzed by negativity. But we can know that in 4 different eras of time, and in all of the days in between, and in all of the days to come, his light is shining on us. May we reflect it. We're going to close out today with just a time of prayer, and I came across this beautiful video that paraphrases Isaiah 60 into a prayer, and I just want us to join together with that as we close today. Sacred, mwah, you are loved.
Look up, love. Take your eyes off the ground. Show your face. A new day is here. The light is rising over you, shining brightly, moving shadows, touching your face. You are brilliant with it. Darkness may come and go, but the glory of our Creator is a constant companion, a steady light. Many will see you struggle to live. Your choice to stand up and walk in the light and be changed. Have the courage to truly see not only the problems, but the one who remains with you holding the light. We are all coming together, family, neighbor, and exiles, taking our seats at the table. We are learning. We are healing. So, take the gift of this day you are given. Let the light enlighten you, emanate from within you, become you, be you. Power is shifting, and it won't look like what we think when love reigns. Cities riddled with the wreckage of war and marked by the scars of empire will exchange the sounds of violence and ruin for the clamor of co-creation and communion. Through the power of God, the oppressed and those stripped of their land are allowed to share in power. We all will weigh in. Life will grow from the most unexpected places. The smallest and least will be welcomed into the center, and their perspective will matter. Not only will violence cease, we won't want to hurt one another, but cooperate for the goodness of all. The whole nature of creation will change. The sun and moon will not be the light we revolve around. We will turn and grow by the light of God that shows us the illumined way to go. We will be ruled by the power of love. We will be remade and refastened to God and one another. We will learn what harmony means. Look up, love. Take your eyes off the ground. Show your face. A new day is here. The light is rising over you, shining brightly, moving shadows, touching your face. You are brilliant with it. Everything wrong side up is being upended. The table is extending, rounding. You have a place that is only yours. And everyone at this table will have more than enough. So, stand up, open up, take it all in, and shine.